The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey, a huge thank you to everyone that could join me today. My name is Charlie Van Derven. I'm with Social Advisors. I also want to make a very special introduction to a good friend of mine, Chuck Hammond. Chuck is the co-founder and also chief digital officer for the 401k study group. But maybe even for our conversation, Chuck, more importantly, a retirement plan centric advisor for more than 20 years, right?
That is correct, Charlie.
Cool.
Great for me to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you got it. And I should throw in, I hear that Chuck is a hell of a griller.
I am. I can grill some stuff on the grill.
All right. Well, one day I look forward to learning that firsthand, Chuck.
Yep, and I look forward to coming to Florida and grilling in your house.
Do it, man. January or February is probably the best time for you to come down.
You're about right. So I'll put that in my day timer right now.
Cool, cool. So, hey, at Social Advisors, Chuck, we do a lot of work with LinkedIn. You and I were talking about Twitter a few months ago, maybe not even that long ago, and we were talking about some of the benefits of the ads that we run on Twitter for 401k centric advisors. Um, But LinkedIn was a big part of our conversation, where I said LinkedIn is really actually driving more activity with no ad spend than what we get from the other platforms like Twitter and Facebook. And so largely, correct me if I'm wrong, but Chuck, that's what prompted this conversation today.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of folks, for a long time, probably the last 4 or 5 years, I've been speaking to advisors about LinkedIn for the conversational engagement aspect of a social media platform. And then over the last 2 or 3 years, as we've started to expand some of our product offerings for the advisors that are in the study group, there's been a big shift internally for me to focus on the data that can be gleaned from LinkedIn. And I think when you put the two of those things together, I think you've got the potential for, I wouldn't say a home run, but at least for a stand-up double.
Yeah, cool. And I'll tell you, we're going to jump through, as you can see from the opening slide here, we're going to jump through 3 routines. 2 of those routines we coach on extensively at Social Advisors. The third routine, we coach on it, but also it's something that we help implement for advisors. And really, if you put a little bit of energy into combining these 3 routines, you're going to quickly fill a sales pipeline. And we've seen a lot of success in the 401k space with connecting with and starting new conversations with plan sponsors. So these will help your audience quite a bit with the 401k study group. So Chuck, I am listen. We all sit through painful 60, 90-minute webinars, right? I don't want to do that to you. I kind of figure if we go past 30 minutes, it probably should have been 2 webinars. So what we're going to do today is we've got these 3 routines, but I'm going to talk about 7 steps that we want to focus on with LinkedIn. The final 3 steps are going to be the routines that are specifically designed for filling the sales pipeline. However, we got to lay some foundation ahead of time. So let's jump right into that. And I'll be switching between the PowerPoint and doing a little bit of live demo as well, which is sometimes a little bit scary depending on how LinkedIn's feeling or how my internet connection's feeling. But I have all the confidence in the world. So should we get going?
Yes, let's be brave.
Cool, man. We will jump in. All right. First thing I want to share, some great statistics here. The one that I focus on the most is as the bottom center there. 80% of leads sourced for business-to-business marketers come directly from LinkedIn. Now, I will tell you that this is a LinkedIn stat, but I'll tell you, I'll also share that this is the same experience that we have. 75% of our new business at Social Advisors comes directly from LinkedIn activity. Right. And to your point, it's all about starting the conversation, building rapport, building value, and closing new business. But right around 75% of our new business flows from some activity conducted on LinkedIn. It can be the same for you guys as well. So the first step we want to focus on, and I'm going to jump into my profile here in a moment, but the first step we want to focus on is branding your profile appropriately. And so let me toggle over to my profile. Great. So that worked out all right. We're still, we're we're still okay as far as technology is concerned. We haven't lost anything yet. Um, Chuck, when it comes to the profile, we really focus on 5 elements when we talk about branding, right? Of course, we want to set your profile up so that it speaks to the audience that you want to attract. And that begins with the cover photo. Now, a lot of you are going to have that blue cover photo that LinkedIn puts, just defaults for you. We like to get a little creative. If you can't tell, that's a light bulb on my cover photo. I think it's supposed to say I'm the guy with the ideas or something like that. Oftentimes we talk about, reinforcing your branding there as well. So you can update that cover photo. I'll coach advisors sometimes to make that branding look like the website branding. So we've got some brand continuity there. Second thing we want to talk about, Chuck, is a headshot. I notice yours is animated.
Yes, that was a Christmas gift a couple of years ago from my business partner, and my goal is to be a little bit different.
Cool.
I know in the financial advisory practice world, the blue suit, the white shirt, and the red tie; those are pretty standard, and I get that. But for me, I wanted to do something a little bit different that would stand out. So much like you, I do have something about the 401k study group in the background, and I have something there that makes a little bit different. And ironically enough, when I co-host other webinars and they ask me for a headshot, I always send this, and they're always a little surprised. What I don't do is take that really good photo of me where I look 15 pounds lighter at a wedding and crop out my wife, because that's a bad idea for a number of reasons.
That is a bad idea. I see a lot of photos. Heck, I still see some photos with young advisors that have like red Solo cup. If that resembles your photo where you cut your significant other out, or it's a picture of you after 3 drinks at a wedding, it's probably not what we want to do. We want to portray a professional look and feel. The photo is pretty small also. So, make sure it's pretty close. You can see your face instead of standing on a mountainside somewhere and, 300 feet off in the distance. And then I see a lot of advisors that are going a little more casual nowadays, Chuck, little jacket, no tie. Or if you want to keep the jacket and tie, maybe shoot outside, and that gives you a little more casual appeal. One thing that I typically recommend is if you're going to use a headshot here, I'd use it in other places, right? It's largely about that kind of brand continuity and familiarity that you're growing. So, Chuck, third thing we focus on is the headline, right? So you can see the headline has my position here, President at Social Advisors. It also speaks to who we help and what we do, right? So in a compliance centric world that you all live in, oftentimes you kind of start to look and feel like each other. Our job at Social Advisors is to help you stand out and really create a personality in somewhat of a saturated environment, right? Now, the huge majority of our business is with financial professionals. We do have some business owners outside the industry as well. So I help professionals stand out in a saturated environment. Speaks largely to who we work with and what we do for them. So when you're attracting that plan sponsor back to your profile, let's write a headline that speaks directly to them, right? Fourth, Chuck.
Charlie, how big is that box? How much can you put in there, if you don't mind me?
I've probably got it pretty maxed out here. I don't know specifically. Maybe it's 150 characters or something along those lines. It's not a lot, right? So you've got to be pretty concise with your language. What's the audience you work with, and what's the value you bring to them are the 2 questions I want to ask.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Yep, you got it. I'm sure with a quick little Google search, we could find out exactly how many characters, but that's around 150, something like that. Fourth thing that we focus on, Chuck, in the profile is how many connections that you've got, or not how many, but who are the connections, right? So 500 plus, a lot of us have achieved that little plus sign. I focus on 4 groups, right? I want to make sure that we're building the profile network with quality. And that means connecting with your clients, right? This is a great opportunity to do more communicating with your clients right through LinkedIn. they also tend to be your best advocates. So one of the routines we'll talk about is asking for the right introductions. And we certainly want to be connected to the right people that are going to get us the introductions we seek. Okay. So number one is your clients. Number two is your prospects, people you're in some type of business communication with. Add those people to your network as well. Centers of influence are referral resources, right? So those are important people to influence on a consistent basis. And then the fourth one, a little more nebulous, Chuck, I'd say I call them other advocates, right? Maybe they don't fit your client profile at all, but you've got a great trusted relationship with them, and you know that if they're connected to the right person, they'll give you the introduction that you're looking for. So other advocates, really could be anybody, right? So long as they've got the right network and you've got the right relationship with them. So as long as you're building around those four sets of people, again, clients, prospects, center of influence, and other advocates, you're building a high quality network that's going to get you introduced to new people, right? And then finally, we focus on the summary, right? So the summary, you've got 2,000 characters to write what it is that you want to write. Again, speak to the audience that you're trying to attract to your business, right? What makes you credible to that audience? What's the value you provide to that audience? And then often I want you to speak a little bit about yourself as well, right? We've got choices on who we do business with. And, largely if we connect on some other personal level, maybe we support the same organizations, maybe we've got the same interests and hobbies. That's bound to kind of push you over the edge as a person that someone might choose to do business with. So Chuck, if you were down here in Florida and knowing your boys are surfers, listen, that would be a tip of the hat because you and I could paddle out together.
Oh, Charlie, I didn't say I surf. Chucky don't surf.
Well, we'll get you on a board then. We'll change that, right?
Okay. All right. Sure. We'll go for it.
All right. Well, not to scare you, we're about 5 miles north of the shark bite capital of the world.
Well, we always end up going to the beach during Shark Week on the Discovery Channel, so my boys think it's quite funny.
All right. You're brave souls. I appreciate that. Cool. So branding matters. Let me jump back into our PowerPoint here. The second thing we want to focus on, Chuck, is developing thought leadership, right? So when you attract the right people and start the right conversations, I want you to be framed in the right light. Now, we help a lot of advisors set up LinkedIn groups. I'm going to tell you, I don't see a lot of business come out of groups, but setting up the right LinkedIn group is important for influencing your audience and demonstrating thought leadership. I got ahead of myself. That's the next slide. Sharing the right content consistently is important for influencing your audience as well. And Chuck, you share a ton of content. I see your posts multiple times weekly. I don't know if we lost a little audio there.
I think so, but I'm here.
There you, Chuck. Cool. All right. Yeah, we lost audio for a second, I think. Yeah, I was saying you share a lot of professional content. It helps develop you as a thought leader within the network that you're building, right? We focus largely on 3 different types of content. I'm going to tell you, as a financial professional, when you share professional, financial focused content, you're not going to find a ton of engagement with that. I don't see, right? That doesn't mean it's not important, right? So even though you share an article and you might get 2 likes, that's okay. What that content does is it positions you correctly as a professional, right? It shows people what you do consistently. Now, we also talk a lot about sharing personal professional content. And that's content that is professional in nature, but maybe it's about you as opposed to being about the profession. Maybe it's about, your assistant. Maybe it's about an event that you host or a conference that you go to. When it's content about you in a professional setting, that's going to create a lot more engagement. And what I like about it is it also shares a little bit about who you are as an individual, not just who you are as a professional. So Chuck, if you could speak to some of the mix of content that you share, because I know you're highly active in sharing content, that might help out a little as well.
I think for me, it's always been about trying to advisors, like many other professionals, have a limited amount of time, and one of the barriers to social media is that it takes time. It takes time to find articles that you know are relevant professionally, and then to share them. Then it takes time to sort through all of the other items that are professionally relevant but might not necessarily jive with your authenticity.
Sure.
So if anything, over the last year, I know, statistically, I am sharing less. And what I've noticed about that is that things go up. I don't think I necessarily do a very good job of sharing personal professional content. What I have tried to do is bring resources in from other places. As an example, this week I posted something called Things I Like, hashtag 401k.
Yeah.
I've tried to use a little bit more of my personal voice with things that I like, and adding a little personal note in there, such as I added a podcast that I listen to pretty frequently. It's Mike Rose. That's the way that I heard it, because I think people need to know that you understand what's going on in the industry, but that you also do things outside of the industry. And that for me has been a really big leap personally, is doing that kind of thing. So as you and I were talking about doing this webinar, I wanted folks to make sure, and thanks for bringing it up, that I'm not saying it's the place, LinkedIn should be the place where you're posting selfies,
Right.
but if you're at an event, if you're being educated, if you're learning, there's nothing wrong with sharing you doing something that is developing you personally or professionally. And I even ask advisors this. I say, when you go away to a conference, what does your staff where does your staff tell people you are? Do they say, oh, Chuck's out on vacation? Or do they say, oh, Chuck is at the FI 360 conference, and that's a conference designed around the best fiduciary standards for the retirement plan industry, as an example.
Yeah.
So I think that, communicating that on LinkedIn, and candidly, when that has been done, when a photo, or I've been with a group of people at an event, those things, from a guy that posts a lot, those things typically get a lot higher engagement than the article about plan sponsor survey, this or that. So that's just something that you want to keep in your back pocket, I think.
Yeah, great commentary on that, Chuck. You got to think professional, personal as well. And to your point, really, it helps. It helps further who you are in the eyes of your audience, right? That continued education aspect of posting about events is great. I started talking about groups, got a little bit ahead of myself. I'm excited about news that I'm hearing out of LinkedIn on where groups are going. I have not been extremely impressed with the interaction within groups, but we use groups a little bit differently. When we help advisors start conversations with a new audience that fit the profile of who they want to be in touch with, telling that person or inviting that person to their group sheds light on the fact that there's a lot of influence from this advisor. Hey, join my group of all these other professionals that are similar to you, that are gaining influence on from the words that I say and the content that I share. So the group to me today is about positioning you correctly as a thought leader. My hope is that LinkedIn understands the value of groups. Facebook's doing a great job with them. And I expect to see the value of a group grow from an interaction perspective as well. So setting up a group is a big part of demonstrating your influence. And it certainly creates that vision of who you are when you invite people to the group that you administer. So, step number 3 out of the 7, and we're going to move through this stuff because I promised you I'd keep it brief. I want to know. I want you to know who your current connections are. The first thing that I typically recommend is, unless you've got value in being connected to a competitor of yours, get rid of them. Now, in the case of 401k study group, Chuck, you're connected to a lot of 401k advisors, and there's value in those peer-to-peer relationship that you're developing. That's an exception. But if you feel like somebody could harm what you're trying to do, get rid of them, get them out of your network, right? One easy way to see who is in your network, and let me jump back into LinkedIn here real quick, is if you go to privacy and settings in your profile, and then you click on privacy, and then you scroll down to download your data. This is going to allow you to export an archive of your connections. So that's much easier to look at. That's much easier to look at in a spreadsheet format than it is to try and sort through your network. So I highly encourage you to export who your connections are, get rid of your competition, and then sort your connections by people who would fit a prospect profile, right? These are people that we want to start talking to. If you're connected to a bunch of directors of HR, but you're not having conversations with them, what's the real value of them being in your network? When we get into the routines, we're going to talk about starting conversations with these people. Okay, so export your connections, get an idea of who it is that you're connected to. All right, this is one of my favorite steps. Chuck, you're on Sales Navigator, right?
I am.
Yeah, man, I'll tell you. I've been in a marketing and business development role for 20 plus years at this point. Sales Navigator is so valuable for what we do. It's such a great sales tool. So I highly encourage those people listening in on the webinar here. If you're not on Sales Navigator, you've got a 30-day free trial. It's awesome. It really is. It's awesome for starting conversations with the right audience. We'll dive into a little bit of live demo here in a second. Certainly get on Sales Navigator. It's going to help connect you with the professionals that you want to be talking to. And at the end of our webinar, I'm going to make a quick offer just to spend, we spend 30 minutes. Education is really part of our mission. So we're happy spending 30 minutes with anybody. We don't have the time. This is not really the right format to be going into too much detail about Sales Navigator. Suffice it to say, it's a great sales tool and a great prospecting tool. And I'm more than happy to spend time one-on-one to kind of, round out exactly the top, 4 or 5 things that you should be doing with Sales Navigator to make it, the sales tool that it's meant to be. So, Chuck, what's your experience with Sales Navigator?
We use it twofold. One, obviously to find other advisors that are 401k centric, usually connected through broker dealers or groups, as you mentioned in the past. And secondarily, when we're actually helping advisors prospect for people inside of a company that they want to go after, the data is great for the advisors that are a little reluctant to spend the money after the trial is over. I mean, you can hunt and peck and find the information, but when you're trying to market to more than one person that touches a retirement plan, you would obviously know the name of the person that signs the 5,500, but are they on LinkedIn? Right. And if they are, is the company on LinkedIn? And then you can use that data to find out who else you want to market to. And you can hunt and peck and do it. It takes a little bit of time, but Sales Navigator is pretty much the easy button for that. Yeah, it sure is. So we're looking at, we're looking at the criteria of which you can search for people in LinkedIn via Sales Navigator. And geography is obviously going to matter. Titles matter, right? So if we go with, HR or human resources, that seems low so far. We'll hit search, but we got 32,000 people that come up in this search. Chuck, that seems low. I don't know what's going on with LinkedIn right now. You know what I messed up? When you do a Boolean search like I just did, let me get back in there. Oh, Chuck, I should have practiced, right? I'm making my searches in the wrong areas. So if we're looking for human resources and let's say director, right? You've got 7 million. I think you can
Yeah,
stop.
yeah, exactly right. Well, I want to narrow it a little bit because I want to search for the director level people, right? So we get it down to 400,000, and then the first thing we want to do is add a location, right? So I'm pretty close to Orlando, Florida. We'll just use that. We got 2,400 directors of human resources in my backyard, right? This is a significant number as well. 321 of those people are posting on LinkedIn in the last 30 days. So we know that they're highly active on this platform. This is a great number of people, Chuck, that we could start conversations with. And if we save them as a lead, the beauty of Sales Navigator is when we go to the homepage on Sales Navigator, it's only going to show us content from the companies that we're following and the people that we've told LinkedIn we want to treat as a lead. The whole purpose of this is viewing their content that they post so that we can send them a quick message and start a conversation based on who they are, what they do, what they're posting, any commonality that we can find. Now, without going into too much detail, Sales Navigator is so great for telling LinkedIn who it is that you want to talk to, and then LinkedIn returning you the right things to start a conversation with those people. It's pretty awesome.
As I said, the data conversation around LinkedIn, I think, is definitely something that's overlooked, especially when it comes to retirement plan centric advisors. For the wealth management folks, I know it's a lot harder, but when you combine the public data of the 5,500s, both short and long form, in conjunction with something like LinkedIn Sales Navigator, it's definitely a stand-up double.
Yeah, it's yeah. And I think I don't know, $70 a month, I think, comes to mind for a price, something like that. All right, so we're going to get into these 3 routines, and I just wanted to lay some foundation with those first 4 steps: the branding, the thought leadership, understanding who it is you're connected to, and also the importance of having Sales Navigator upgrade. Now, this is kind of common sense stuff. Most of this is right off the top of my head, but it's really important to develop a routine, right? I've been working with advisors for 20 or so years, and I know that I can transfer information quite easily, but implementing that information becomes so much easier when you've got a very specific routine that's repeatable, right? And so that's the importance of really building routines as opposed to just implementing information, right? So first and foremost, we want to develop a daily routine. And I promise you, while daily sounds like a lot, we're talking about maybe 10 minutes, okay? And what I want to do in those 10 minutes is find 3 people to start a conversation with. Sales Navigator becomes a huge part of this, right? So when I go through Sales Navigator, and let me do a compare and contrast here. Chuck, I'm in the free version here of LinkedIn now, right? And I want you to just notice real quick. Here's Lisa Lee Winland. She liked, Oleg's post. I don't know who Oleg is. Here's Google Cloud promoting some content to me. Justin Trudeau, maybe I want to talk to Justin, but my likelihood of starting a conversation with him is not great. So what I want to point out very quickly here is that, the LinkedIn homepage in the free version is kind of a hodgepodge of content. It's them guessing at what you might want to see most. When you go to Sales Navigator and you're saving people as specific leads, right? Winnie Sun, Michael Kitces, these are people that I've told LinkedIn that I want to talk to these people. So when I go to my homepage on LinkedIn Sales Navigator, I'm getting content specifically from advisors that we're prospecting. So if I see some great content that Michael shared, I'll send him a message and I'll say, hey, Michael, I love that article that you posted about this and that, but what about this other thing? I specifically ask a question because what I'm trying to do is create banter. I'm not going to approach him with a sales pitch. I'm going to approach him and build some rapport. Michael's going to respond. We'll have a back and forth conversation, and eventually I'll say, hey, Michael, been great talking with you. What are you doing next Tuesday? I'm down near your office. Can I buy you a cup of coffee? Right? To your point, Chuck, it is a conversation starter like no other. Now, our daily routine has you doing that with 3 people every single day. And Sales Navigator's homepage, when you save the right leads, it's going to give you all the content that you need to start those conversations. Now, if you think about that, that's 3 a day. It takes you about 10 minutes. When you get good at it, it's going to take you about 5 minutes. That's 15 a week. Chuck, 60 a month. Times 12, we got 720 new conversations that you're trying to start every single year. Now, not all of those are going to turn into opportunity for you. In fact, the minority of those are going to turn into opportunity for you. But let's say that's 100 meetings you get out of those 700 conversations that you started in 10 minutes a day. Does that seem like it's worth it?
Oh, not only is it worth it, I've been doing it since we had our first chat about this, and it's not is it worth it? It does work.
Yeah, it works. It works, right? You're reaching out on someone else's terms, give them a compliment, ask them a question, and the majority of these people are going to respond directly to you. Cool. So that's our daily routine number one. Now, we could talk about sharing content on a daily basis. I'd say a couple times a week, 3-4 times a week is good. You obviously want to pay attention to your inbox when you start sending out these messages. You're going to find very quickly that you get a lot of returns, so that inbox is going to fill up. That's good news. But I want you sending out 3 conversations or starting 3 conversations, private direct messages every single day. I promise you that's going to lead to opportunity. Now, Chuck, let me jump back into our PowerPoint here, get on to the second routine. That second routine is asking for the right introductions. I'm going to share some stats here, and I don't want to bore you, so we'll make it quick. I do some work with a company called the Oxley Institute out of North Carolina, and they're an awesome organization. And above all else, the Oxley Institute's a research institute. Now, they research 2 different audiences. They do surveying on 2 different audiences, I should say. Top 5% of producers and an affluent retail audience with $1 million in investable assets or more. So it's a little bit different, but I think this still speaks volumes to the 401k centric advisor. Here's some of the research. 83% of affluent investors do not like it when their advisor asks them for a referral. Chuck, does that surprise you at all?
No, well, mostly because you and I have had this conversation twice, but when we first had it, no, it did not surprise me, largely because I've been doing this long enough, and especially at the beginning of my career, I sort of had that marble-mouthed, sort of offhanded way of asking for referrals, and in most cases, I would get the same reply. You know what, Chuck? Let me think about it, and I'll get back to you. So I think asking for referrals, now that I've matured and that we actually have a process in place, we actually have 2 of them, we've gotten a lot better at not getting referrals, but getting, as you call them, introductions.
Yeah, right. And the flip side to that, I'll tell you, if you go out and ask for a referral, and coaches, for forever in this industry have been telling you to do that. And if you go ask for 10, you'll probably get one. And you'll be excited. It works. But what you don't see is the damage that's done to those relationships from people who, quite frankly, find that conversation off-putting. And I don't know a whole lot of advisors that are really very good at it, right? So it gets a little awkward. The flip side of that is more than 65% of those same audiences that were surveyed, they said that they met their current advisor, again, retail, but it's going to apply for 401k centric. But they met their current advisor through a professional or a personal introduction. So find out who it is that your best advocates know and ask for an introduction to those people. It's not difficult. And let me get back to Sales Navigator, a little bit broken record here. I'm going to pull up a good friend of mine, okay? And she's local here, Nancy Kiefer, if I can find her profile. Nancy is the president and CEO of our local chamber. I'm pretty involved in that organization. When I click, Chuck, let me find it here. When I click on Nancy's 500 plus connections, it shows me exactly who Nancy is connected to, right? Now, Nancy and I have a great relationship. We do lunch a lot. I've been involved in the organization for 3-4 years, sit on the board. Anyway, she's a person that I know that if I found the right person to get an introduction to, if she knows that person well enough, she's going to grant it. right? So using the same, and I'll just stick with the generic HR, human resources, typing in that keyword, I can search Nancy's network for people in human resources, right? We could search CFOs, we could search business owners as well. You know, we'll put in Daytona Beach because that's a little bit closer to where I am. There's 26 people, right? Director of Human Relations. Anyway, 26 people that potentially fall into the category of people I want to know, right? So LinkedIn's pretty awesome at telling us who's our best advocate connected to for us to get an introduction. So the second routine, and again, it doesn't take long to do that type of research and then to reach out to Nancy and say, hey, Nancy, old friend, old pal, how do you know Kaylin Grant? I'd love to get an introduction to Kaylin Grant. Can I buy you guys lunch? I promise not to talk business. I just want to get to know them, and then I can take it from there, right? We encourage advisors to ask for 2 key introductions every single week. Chuck, here's the data on that. First off, it's going to take you about 30 minutes to make those phone calls, do the research, have the conversation. You're going to get introduced to somewhere between 25 and 30% of the people that you ask for. Now, assuming we all take a couple weeks of vacation, if you do 2 a week, you're going to ask for 100 introductions every year. You're going to get introduced to 25 key people every year as a result of that activity. Now, there's a difference here. When you start a cold conversation, you've got to build rapport and you've got to build trust. But when my friend Nancy Kiefer, president of the local chamber, makes an introduction, that trust transfers from that existing relationship. So you're already steps ahead with these new introduction relationships that had you started that conversation cold, you'd have to build that trust. So introductions are really key. So take 30 minutes a week, do your research through Sales Navigator, ask for the right introductions, and meet the right people in your community with the right companies to help forward that relationship. Now, many of us started our careers with cold calling, right? I think much of this industry, especially on the retail side, was founded on cold calling and seminar selling. That's really difficult to do today. LinkedIn is a platform that allows you to take the same principles of cold calling, but do it on steroids, okay? So through some of the research that we did through LinkedIn Sales Navigator, you can find hundreds, if not thousands, of people that fit the target audience that you want to be talking to. If you send a decent, a well-worded invite into that network, I can tell you from a lot of data that we've gathered, about 35% of those people are going to accept your invitation to connect. That's a great first step. Those people are now part of your network. You're going to influence them with content. If you see them on Sales Navigator, you can reach out and start a conversation based on content that they're sharing and start to build that rapport, right? Of these 30 or 35, so if you connect with 100 people that fit that target audience, or you attempt to, you're going to get 30 to 35 new connections. Through a series of messages, and I'm more than happy offline to have a conversation with each of you to kind of craft some messaging. But through a series of messages, you now get to influence those people. And unlike cold calling of old, this works. These people also get an opportunity to take a look back at you and look at your experience and basically build your credibility based on how your profile's set up, right? So cold calling is not dead. It's just not done the same way. Now we do it through cold connecting on LinkedIn and building the right network of professionals that you want to be influencing tomorrow and for years to come. So the third routine, Chuck, that we do is we encourage advisors to reach out to 200 target individuals every single month. You're going to add about 60 new connections every month as a result, and set up 3 or 4 messages just to build these relationships and start to nurture and build trust in that relationship and start conversations. So those are your 3 routines, right? It's develop that daily routine of starting 3 conversations. That's 720 potential conversations every year. It's asking for 2 introductions every week. That's going to lead to about 25 personal handshakes every year. And take a couple of minutes every day and connect with cold prospects. This is not set up to take you a lot of time, but I promise you that if you implement on these 3 routines, you're going to fill that sales pipeline in a hurry. Chuck, what do you think?
Charlie, here's what I'll tell you. I am big on process, and this is a process. It's short, it's detailed, it's to the point, and for 401k advisors who are looking to engage and shoulder the burden of using the amount of data that is available on LinkedIn, this is a perfect process. It works. I've been doing it since we had our first phone call. I really believe in eating what we kill. And I will tell advisors out there that if they're not using this strategy, they have to. I'm not saying that direct marketing or cold calling or cold emails are not going to work, because for a small percentage of your marketing and your prospecting activity, they will. But this data turns those outreaches into something that's lukewarm as opposed to cold. And quite frankly, I get very few people that reach out to me the right way on LinkedIn and try to connect. And if you go about doing it this way, your success of connecting with those folks is going to go up dramatically.
Yeah, and it is rapport based, right? We're not trying to cram sales. We're trying to create relationships, and in turn, sales will come, right? People do business with people they trust, so we got to build that trust. Chuck, earlier in the conversation, I offered to spend time with anybody, right? And honestly, we are here to educate. So I'll take 30 minutes from anybody that absolutely wants to sit down. Now, of course, in those 30 minutes, I'm going to tell you about the services that Social Advisors provides, right? But the remaining 27 minutes are going to be focused directly on you, what your goals are, what your current methodology is, and offering you any feedback and intelligence that I've gathered over the last couple of decades that can make you better at what you do. Right. So this is my contact information. I'm a little scared to share it, but that number is my cell number. So blow it up if you want to. And certainly feel free to reach out, and we'll schedule 30 minutes when it fits both our calendars mutually, and I'll give you any information I possibly can.
Charlie, I think that's a very generous offer. And if any advisors want the skinny and they want to talk to me directly, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. If you're not connected, connect, shoot me a message there. You have a much better chance of me getting back to you on LinkedIn than with email on a pretty predictable basis.
Yeah. I'm probably plugged into LinkedIn a lot more than I am email as well. Chuck, listen, I want to thank you like crazy for joining me today. This is always nicer when we've got a little bit of banter instead of me talking at people. And so I appreciate your feedback, and I also I value that feedback, because I know, not only LinkedIn, but man, you're using all the platforms at your disposal to help grow your influence, your business, and that 401k study group network, which is creating a ton of value for the advisors that are members there. So thanks for taking the time, man. I appreciate it. And yeah, I don't know. Let me know when we can do it again sometime, because I always enjoy it.
Well, great, Charlie. I agree too. Thanks for all your support, all your feedback, all of your ideas that I intertwine into the conversations that I have with advisors, and this has been very helpful for me. We've been through this 3 times, and I actually took notes. So things that I want to start doing a little bit better to make my process a little bit more fine-tuned. And I want to thank you for asking me to be on today. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, you got it, man. My pleasure, Chuck. Come back anytime.
Thanks, Charlie.
You got it. Take care.